Hi friends, I wanted to show you a tool in Clip Studio Paint called Extract Line. So I've made other videos before talking about the layer property, and so we talked about things like the border effect and the tone, like the screen tones, the layer color, but we kind of skipped over this one. It looks like two circles overlapping. It's called Extract Line. So this is another helpful tool to kind of get like line art and maybe some like basic shading or like just base colors for a background. And this works best, in my opinion, with 3D models that you download from the Clip Studio Asset Library. It can work on other images, and I'll show you both. So first, here is a model I downloaded from the Asset Library. I forget if this one was free or not. It's just one I happen to have on my computer. So first thing you might notice is that this house is floating because I moved around my canvas. I adjusted it to an angle that I liked, but in doing so, I kind of accidentally separated the house from the ground. So now it kind of has this drop shadow that makes it look like it's floating. So this happens to me a lot, and I usually don't care. Personally, I usually don't ever use the drop shadow for these models anyway. So let me show you how to get rid of that in case you don't like it. So I'm going to go with I'm going to make sure my object operation tool I have my layer selected with my model. I should see these kind of toolbars in the top and bottom. Like we've talked about before, the ones on top can move the angle, and the ones on the bottom are more kind of like settings. I'm going to click this one that looks like a wrench. It's called Display Object List. I'm going to click that. It's going to pop open a window, and there's like so many settings here. First one I'm going to look at is the one called Shadows. There's a setting here called Cast Shadows on Ground. I'm just going to unclick that, and that's just going to get rid of that like drop shadow, and voila. You can also mess around with all these. I really highly recommend just like clicking everything, trying it out. In this case, I know if I click off apply the light source here, it's going to kind of not really be great for extracting line art because it kind of got rid of a lot of the lines. So let's also look at light source. Adjusting your light source might also help in terms of making your model read well in terms of the line extraction. It's never going to be perfect. Let me just say that. It's never going to be great. Sorry, you can hear my angry little dog. So just get it to something. And like I said, if you goof up, you can always go back and undo until you've got something that you like. The goal is just to try to get Clip Studio to read this model in the cleanest way possible. And that's just going to take some experimentation. I also recommend checking out the object list. A lot of models, so in this case, this is the name of the model, and I can click the down arrow, and you're going to see if I start like clicking these, certain areas are going to turn on and off. It kind of makes it visible or invisible. So maybe in this case, if you wanted to look inside of this, you could take off the roof and kind of see blueprints for the house. I can put it back. I know some of these like have like windows, so a lot of these have like further drop downs. So in this case, this window is open, so I can like open or close this little window here, if you can see that. So not all models will have this. It just depends on who built the model and how they built it. I wish I could build models like this because it's so much fun. I love it. So, okay. So let's just say we're happy with our model here. Maybe I'll try, no, there already is an outline on. Okay, perfect. I'm going to try now this tool that we talked about, the Extract Line tool. So with our model selected in the layers, let's click it. And the first thing you might notice is that nothing has changed. That's because right now it's active, but the layer is active. So if we click off of it, you're going to see now we have kind of a line art version of that. But we can mess with the settings. As you can see, once you've clicked this tool, all these settings have showed up. You can mess with this, but I highly recommend clicking this Convert Layer to Lines and Tones. I think this is the most helpful tool to do. If I do this, with a 3D model, you're going to have the option to do raster layers or vector layers for the line art. I'm a big fan of the vector layer, but you can pick which one you prefer. I also recommend hitting preview because often what you see by default is not how it's going to look. So this is going to look a little bit closer to what I got. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time messing around with the settings, but I do highly recommend messing with all these settings. Like if I just start clicking around, you're going to see how things change. Usually it takes a minute. There's a lot. This model's pretty detailed, so any changes I make are going to take a second to implement. So mess with these. I highly recommend messing with the tone work, so you can kind of move these arrows around to get kind of quote unquote like the toning, the shading. It's going to create screen tones for us. I can drag these away so there's less. I can click so I have more. It's just going to be about experimentation. Once I'm pretty satisfied with what I got, I'm going to hit OK. And then it's going to take a minute to think because it's creating layers for me. Ta-da! Okay, let's look at our little layer list here. It's created this folder with the model name, and it has a whole bunch of layers it created. It has some lines, it has some tones, and it has like a kind of flat fill layer. You can also notice that it still has my original 3D model layer here. It just kind of turned it invisible. And that way, if I want to make edits or changes, I still have my model handy. So let's go through this. So by default, it's created screen tones for me. A lot of times I don't use screen tones in my comics. So if you don't want a screen tone, you're just going to click the layer and click the tone off. Just toggle it off by clicking the little tone icon right here. And that we can have a grayscale version. And maybe you don't want a grayscale version, maybe you want colors. So you can double click the little thumbnail. And I'm just going to pick some wild and crazy colors here just so we can clearly see. All right. Awesome. So here's my rainbow house now. You can change this to whatever you want. Another thing to notice is usually it creates two different outlines. One is a gray outline, and if I kind of turn this on and off, like maybe I like that, maybe I don't. I can change this to be color instead of gray. And same for this vector. This is my vector line art right here that I can easily modify. And by default, it's monochrome, but I can change that to color as well. So this is kind of a good jumping off point. As you can see, it is not perfect. The model is definitely much cleaner. Clip Studios is kind of, the closer you zoom in, the more you're going to be like, what is happening? And it's just kind of doing its best to extract the line art from what the model is. Each model is going to be different, but it's definitely fun to play around with. So if I was using this as like a background, I would often use this fill as kind of like my base flats, and I can actually clip all these things to this fill, because as you can see, like in the thumbnail, it might be hard to see. It's actually just where the house is. So I can keep adding more layers. And for instance, if I wanted to add like shading or like something to it, it's clipped, as you can tell, to the house. So that might help also speed things in case you don't like using the tones for colors. You can still kind of color it in and add shading however you want. Add whatever heckin' colors you want to it. You can also adjust the color of the line art as well, of course. Anything that you would normally do. So in this case, I would say this is not great for super good details. It's a great jumping off point, like if I was gonna like almost like trace over it or simplify this, because clearly as it is, it's not. I don't know. I don't know what the heck's going on a little bit here, but it's better than just drawing it all completely from your brain without any reference at all. And especially it might not matter if it's just like a far away asset that's kind of blurred in the distance. It might not really matter that much. And I think it's a super helpful, cool tool. I've been using it a lot in my comics. Okay, so let's look at something. I'm going to just erase all of this. Let's look at not a 3D model. This is actually just like a picture of a 3D model. We could use the same tool. We talked about previously like the artistic filter. This is kind of a same vibe as that. I would say experiment and see which one you like better. But let's try it. Let's do extract line. This is what it looks like. We can scroll down here and do the same thing, convert layer to lines and tones. And you're going to see here, there's a lot less options than the 3D model. So the 3D model provides more ways to manipulate the settings, and here we've got less, but it's better than nothing. So let's hit OK, and we get the same sort of look. We can keep the tones, we can adjust the tones, we can turn off the tones, change all the colors. Another thing you'll notice here is because I use an image and not a model, I don't have the flats as concise. The flats don't go around the house. It's not like smart enough to know that. So you're going to have to create your own flats for this if you were going to use this as a base. This is another, I think it looks really cool, but it really wouldn't fit in like the style of it because it is so textured and grainy. It really doesn't fit in with a lot of my art stuff. And same as before, it's never going to be perfect. It's just doing its best to guess. It's like, there's lots of little lines here that come from the lighting from the, I believe from the actual photo here, if we take this away. It's like reading the shading and the lighting as like lines, and it's extracting those. So you can see how it's like interpreting. It does its best. So it's never going to be perfect, but it definitely, like I said, like before, it's probably a lot better than starting just from your imagination. I would probably use something like this, turn the opacity down on the line art, and maybe just pick main areas and just kind of trace over it and kind of get a more simplified look. But hopefully you found this helpful. How about we do, before I end this, let's do a speed run. Let's do a speed model really fast where I'm talking less and just kind of doing it. I'm going to try to find one. Here's some I've been using recently. I'm just going to grab this model, drag it on. Let me minimize this. Okay, let's just zoom in. We'll like mess with the angle a little bit. I think the lighting is pretty good, so I'll just avoid messing with that. Let's extract the line art, convert to layers. Whatever the settings are, they're perfect. Let's just see how it looks. Awesome. So simple as that. Let me turn off my tones here. So I just feel like it's easier to kind of see. And now I've got a good base for something. I usually would maybe blur this background out or erase, maybe take away some of the lines I don't like, and there you go. It's a fun tool to have. Hopefully they keep improving it with future updates and adding more settings, and I think it's a really great tool. So hopefully you found this helpful as well. So thank you so much for watching, and okay, that's it. Bye. Bye.